chilling tales for dark nights.
The following performance is a second-round entry in the 2016 Evil Idol competition, and you, the listener, get to help decide who wins. Like what you hear? Click the thumbs up. Don't care for it? Click the thumbs down. Good luck to all of our contestants.
The Itch. Written by Jeffrey Ebright. Performed by Frank Richards for
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights
and the Evil Idol competition. The last thing I remember, I was sitting on my couch wrapped in a heavy blanket. I was a little tired from work, so I'd picked up some food from Chipotle, a 6-pack of Bud, and set to the task of watching some movie I half wanted to see on Netflix to pass the time before I went to bed. Hell, I didn't have to work tomorrow. I must have been more exhausted than I thought because I don't even remember making it to the end of the flick. When I woke up, I found myself lying on a featureless, cold stone floor. Dim light filtered through the small window in the iron door on the opposite wall. The room had no windows, and there was not a stick of furniture to be seen. It looked like one of those old medieval dungeon cells I'd seen in a bad 1970s Hammer film. Also, I quickly became aware my hands were cuffed in thick metal shackles. Then it happened. Slowly, I felt a slight tingling sensation like a little lazy ant walking across my skin. Unfortunately, the irritation was on my rear end. Rather, in the crack of my rear end. I shifted a bit from cheek to cheek, but to no effect. The slight sensation seemed to react as if the ant had invited some friends to come out and try his new playground. I couldn't just reach around because of the shackles, and there was nothing to scratch myself with. I stood up and walked over to the nearest wall. I put my butt against the wall and tried moving it up and down and side to side. To my chagrin, the walls were as smooth as the floor, so there was no scratching satisfaction to be had. And the itch got worse. I saw a movie where a guy had his hands behind his back and had brought them to the front of his body by balling himself up and slipping the cuffs down and over his legs. I thought I could try that in reverse. The movie guy must have been a contortionist. I couldn't even get the shackles looped under my feet. I lay on the floor, out of breath and frustrated. The sweat from my attempt trickled down into the fold of my butt, which only inflamed the insufferable itch. I tried the cheek-rocking method, hoping to push the sweat from the crevice, but it was just as useless as cursing at an ocean tide to stop mid-wave. And the itch got worse. When I was a kid, my older brother and chief tormentor poured table salt into a fresh cut I had gotten from a sharp piece of metal. That hurt like a mad bastard. The itch was close to that sensation, now running the entire length of my rump crack. Apparently, salt in the wound wasn't bad enough as the itch gained momentum, as if dipped in hot sauce. In desperation, I tried my dog's tactic. Woogsy would drag her ass across the carpet to relieve her rectal suffering. From one end of the cell and back, I desperately scooted across the floor, and it didn't help. And the itch got worse. Tears started to well up in my eyes as I realized the itch was concentrating on my puckered sphincter, attacking it like Zulus at the Battle of Islalawana. For those of you who've never heard about this battle, the British, possessing superior firepower and superior tactical strategy, were eventually overrun by the relentless Zulu warriors, who were equipped only with spears and shields made from cowhide. It seemed my bottom had become British Commander Lord Chelmsford, with no means of withdrawal from the fury of the African hordes. You seem to be experiencing difficulties. A low, soothing voice called from the dungeon door window. Who are you? I wiped at my eyes. I couldn't see a face, only a thin, dark silhouette peering into the cell. Where am I? I am a friend. And you are in a place that is not nice. My ass felt like someone had set it on fire with rubber cement, and unknown forces were trying to put it out with jet fuel. The discomfort, no, not discomfort, pain was so great that my brain flooded my body with endorphins to counteract this brutal assault. The endorphin rush only succeeded in a momentary plateau to allow me to say, "Please, help me." And if I could help you, what would this be worth to you? I don't understand. I am a man with considerable talents. Yet such talent cannot simply be given away. There must be a cost. A fee, if you will. A fee? Whatever. Name it. Just help me. For a specialized service such as this, unscrupulous men would charge an arm and a leg. I am not a greedy person. I believe the appropriate fee would be an arm. Your right arm. Just to the elbow. Are you insane? No, I do not believe I am. Does that not seem to be a fair trade to halt your discomfort? At this point, I was almost out of my mind. Magma from the very bowels of hell was flowing across my tortured butt pucker. I collapsed to the floor and curled into the fetal position, but the pain would not be bargained with. Yes! I managed to heave the word like I was vomiting it. Unfortunately, the searing torture would not allow me to pass out. It was then I became aware of my body being lifted like a rag doll and placed on something. Maybe a bed? A table? I didn't know, and I didn't care at this point. The dark man fastened heavy leather straps across my head, chest, wrists, and ankles. In a matter of moments, I realized I was completely immobilized and strapped to a surgical table. The dark man turned on a blinding overhead lamp and proceeded to tie a tourniquet just above the elbow of my right arm. With my head strapped down, I could only hear the tinkling of metal objects. My imagination didn't have long to wonder what lay ahead, because I heard him softly say, more to himself than anyone else, "Yes, yes, I believe this will suffice." Whether by accident or on purpose, I caught sight of what would suffice. It was a long, flat, smooth blade composed of shimmering metal. As he held it from a modified grip, I fixated on the vicious, heavy teeth lining the edge of the steel. And the teeth of this bone saw looked very hungry. Now, this may cause some discomfort. The bone saw blade briefly glimmered in the light before sinking its jagged metal teeth into the flesh of my upper forearm. The pain of my fiery anus counterbalanced the wet, consistent torment as the saw sank deeply into my muscle. I could see flashes from the shiny steel saw and an occasional red spurt that shot from the wound. When the saw struck bone, the serrated blade ground through my cartilage, sounding like a cartoon effect of a woodsman sawing down a tree. I was sure merciful shock had kicked in. On the verge of blissful blackness, I snapped back to my senses as the man cauterized the stump where my lower arm used to be attached. The stench of searing flesh turned my stomach, but I didn't dare throw up while I was restrained. I fought back the bile bubbling in my throat with a hard swallow. And in that moment, the itch was gone. It was as if someone had casually flipped a switch in my brain and it had instantly complied. There was no pain at all. None. Even the smoking stump that was once my right arm was non-existent. I said a silent prayer to whatever God was listening for their mercy. Our business is done. That is, unless there is something else I can be of service. Something else? Something else? The phrase tumbled unrecognized around in my brain, craving some understanding. No, I don't think My words died in my throat as my lips continued moving in a soundless response. The itch had returned, and it was 10 times worse. You are having a problem? The itch! I struggled against the strap immobilizing my head and thrashed wildly. It's back! Oh, I did agree to halt your pain. I never said how long. Son of a bitch! I can end the pain permanently. He leaned in above me. All I could see were shiny black orbs where his eyes should have been. All I ask is your left arm. Just to the elbow. I bolted awake in a pool of sweat. I looked around and found myself back in my cramped living room. Sunlight poured through my front room window, letting me know that the entire night had gone. More important, no shadow man stood above me. I fought to get my racing heart under control as I breathed a sigh of relief. That is, until I realized I couldn't feel my right arm below the elbow. In a panic, I fought to free my arm from under the heavy blanket. I stared in disbelief as I looked at my arm. It was attached and undamaged. I felt like an idiot, figuring I'd probably just slept on it, which made it go numb. To be sure, I quickly examined my left arm. That was okay, too. And it was in that moment of discovery the true horror hit home. My fingers, whole and intact, were covered in a sickly brownish tan substance. And they smelled like shit. The itch had got me again.
Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, don't forget to cast your vote for this contestant via a thumbs up or thumbs down vote. By doing so, you'll help us determine who will become the next permanent member of our voice acting team. At the close of voting on August 15th, based on your votes, the top 25 contestants will advance to the third round, which begins September 1st, based entirely on your votes. Thank you for voting and for helping to spread the word. You're listening to Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. I'm Steve Taylor, host of Chilling Tales, the podcast, encouraging you to turn off the lights and turn on the dark.
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights.